What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? The moon is in Cancer, and chilling at home. But you know what? The interesting thing when you think about just like the moon in Cancer, there's a very cyclical nature with the moon, and of course that the moon rules Cancer. Cancer has that too, but there's the your general energy was very fascinating. What's happening here, and I think that it's looking at when we're going through these different cycles and when we're noticing repeating themes, getting down to the root of why these themes keep happening here. We're gonna get into all that here in a moment, but before we get into that, if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Jupiter, wherever. This one's for you. But if you don't have Cancer placements, you got Cancer somewhere in your chart, and planets go through there all the time. Moon goes through there once a month, so it's good for everybody to know where to kind of sync up with the moon. And I do tarot card spreads based on that lovely luminary, the good old moon. And I'll talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, and when it's going void. Of course, just all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's jump into it, because this was a very kind of fascinating one, and I'll get into all that in a moment, because I really am, because I've just raised a couple of eyebrows. But before we get into that, depending on when you're watching this, happy Jupiter Day. Jupiter is associated with Thursdays, and I find that Jupiter days can be a great way to just expand your world, to go out there and learn something new, go experience something. This could be where you take up a new course of study, or maybe you have some new information that you want to pass along, a new perspective that you've maybe learned or that you've kind of come across there. Jupiter days can be great for that, but it's just Jupiter has just a very buoyant energy in general, and that might even be something to pay attention to when you notice like Jupiter hours that come around. How does the energy shift? If that's something that you happen to notice, how your energy shifts. And I think that Jupiter too, there's a when you think about the kind of faith aspect of Jupiter really, I find, wants us to achieve things that are just like larger than life there. And I think that that's something, really exciting, that there is always that opportunity for growth there. And, Jupiter getting ready to move into Cancer here soon. I'm really looking forward to that. That's good. I think going to bring some really great energy. But another way that I like working with these days are thinking about my relationship with Jupiter, not just where I have Jupiter natally, but how do you deal with Jupiter transits, or even maybe aspects to your natal Jupiter there? How does that show up for you? Jupiter's been lighting up my Leo placements as of late, and I've been digging it. It's been very positive. And like I was just talking with someone, they're getting ready, as Jupiter's moving into Cancer. That's Jupiter's exalted there, as it loves the home of the moon. And I think that this is really going to, even with, we got Saturn kind of moving into its sign of fall, but I think that Jupiter's going to be there to kind of mitigate that as well. So this is just a great time to just be thinking about, like, what is the upcoming energies as Jupiter's wrapping up in Gemini? What did that do for you? And then what's to come? What are you anticipating with this energy? So just some things to think about there. But let's go ahead and get into the lunar shenanigans, because on the 1st of May, the moon's going to enter into Cancer pretty early at about 12:23 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, and it's in a waxing crescent phase. Now, the waxing crescent phase is one of those sort of like excitable times, is where the moon is starting to increase in light, and whatever theme that has been, that lunation started up for you, this would be the time to really start getting curious, doing some research, doing some studying. So maybe this lunation happened in your first house. So maybe thinking about ways that you want to grow, Maybe you're thinking about how you want to maybe correct your speech. Maybe you want to improve those skills, since that's one thing that the first house covers. But maybe you're thinking about ways maybe you want to change your appearance. Maybe you want to begin some sort of new action. Maybe this happened in one of your money houses, and you're thinking about ways of investing, ways of making your money stretch a bit longer. Maybe it happened in your home space. We might want to move. You may want to do some home improvements. So this would be the time to, again, to get curious about those things and think about what sort of actions that you want to take. How do you want to make those intentions more, make those intentions manifest? So that's something to think about there. But then let's talk about the moon in its home. Because, like I said, when we talk about Cancer, Cancer is, they're ruled by the moon, and they're the cardinal water sign, and they are receptive or yin in nature. And there is a deep intuition with Cancer. Cancer has a way of feeling the energies out. It's the source of feelings when you really kind of break that down there with Cancer, because that water energy deals with the feeling, but it's the source of like where the psychic energies are coming from, the connection to the cosmic waters. Cancer's unique in the water signs because it's the one where you have Scorpio that's completely on land and it just carries its water with it, and Pisces just completely submerged. Cancer teeters between the two. It follows the moon controls the tides, and so Cancer has a way of taking, it's linked into the waters, and it's able to bring that back on Earth. And then the crab travels with its home, and it grows, and eventually it has to grow out of that shell and move on. And there is a really strong nurturing, growing energy with the moon in Cancer as well. So I find that this is a great time with the moon in Cancer to get back to the source of you, really to dip into your feelings over these next couple of days and see what energies are moving in you, and notice the energies that are maybe even coming around you too, because that's something with the water signs. They have this where they have that sort of like deep empathy and able to connect and sense when others are feeling things, especially in Cancer. But in that energy, sometimes you can maybe consciously or unconsciously absorb some of those energies. Water does have this strong absorption qualities. Once you put add anything to the water, that's it. The water you got to get, it's a whole process to get that out there again. And that might be something too. What are some things maybe that you need to filter out? What are some, maybe if the water has gotten a little kind of kind of grimy, it might be time to just like kind of cleanse the energies. Maybe like literally going by some water, or maybe maybe while you're taking a shower or a bath, just imagine the energy. So it's kind of just like washing that stuff away there. Hydration, like kind of like filtering out through the body, some things like that. So those are some ways that I like working with Cancer. And I want to mention too, even though the moon's at home, it's a little different when the moon is like celebrated in Taurus, because even when a celestial body is at its home, let's say if you have like the moon in like the 8th house, or like the 12th, or like the 12th house, or like the 6th house, you can still be in your home space and it'd be a mess. So that's just something that you want to just kind of be mindful of, kind of just maybe get eyes on that. And I bring that up because let's go ahead and get into your general energy of the day, because that was really fascinating. Because you got this the last if you go to look back at the previous lunation when you had the moon in Cancer, not only did you get this hexagram, but you got the exact same changing lines. Which when I'm not one that really believes in coincidences. There's something there behind that. So there may even be a message in that previous one that you may want to review there. Think about what was going on when that moon was in Cancer. But you got hexagram 56, which is the traveler. And the changing lines were lines 3, 4, and 6. And keep in mind, like when I'm doing this whole divination thing, I'm using with the yarrow sticks here, so that when I switch over, you'll see them wrapped up here in this kind of blue cloth. But it's a whole deal. And it's not something that you can really just kind of like finagle. So that's what's really kind of interesting. And I would invite you, I've included a link for just one source that has all of the hexagrams and the lines that are there, so you can meditate on that stuff. But there are, I'm sure, like plenty of other resources and different books that you can definitely check that out there. But I would look into that. But let's go ahead and get into these lines here. And this hexagram is fire over mountain. And so this is giving me like something is coming to a head there that gives very kind of volcanic sort of energies there. But let's talk about the first line, which is well actually we're going to talk about the third line. And that one talks about the traveler's inn is burning. The servant is sent scurrying, danger. And this is why I say, like, there's something where if there's something that maybe you've been ignoring, maybe something that you have absorbed that just maybe hasn't been dealt with, I think that this is because the thing is when we don't get eyes on things, they run us from outside of our consciousness there. And if it's something that you don't deal with, usually it'll come out in other people too. So let's say if you're noticing, for example, let's say if you're noticing like a pattern in relationships, that's always an easy one, where it's just like you seem to attract a certain type of people, where it's not to say that these people aren't obviously doing something, but what is it that you're maybe not sensing, that you're not intuiting, that seems to allow those same energies to kind of come into the mix here? There's a danger, there's a, and I don't want to say like necessarily danger, but there's something here that the alarms are going off. Like it's just like like it's like an energy, like you get this feeling like I've been here before. Something doesn't feel right. So this would be a time before things get out of hand and things, potentially exacerbate. If you're noticing some red flags in a relationship, maybe just getting ahead of it, addressing this, just like, hey, I'm noticing these behaviors, or, like maybe you have these suspicions and it's just like, I'm just coming out of this thing, so maybe I'm projecting, but I'm just curious if there's something that's going on that maybe we need to discuss, whatever that might be going there, or might be happening there. So that's just one thing that just is this heck, or this changing line kind of brought up for me. So that's just something to just kind of think about there. Now, let's get into the fourth line, because this talks about the traveler builds his own quarters. The lost sum he recovers, but his heart is not glad. And this is thinking about, let's say we had a relationship, and just continue on that track. We had something, it burned down, and now we're kind of building. Or maybe this could be something where we like made an investment and didn't do all the details, and then kind of have to cut our losses. And it's not that you won't recover from this thing, but I think it's like taking the time to process, like, because I think sometimes what can happen maybe too with the water signs is that they do tend to, I think they can hold on to things maybe a bit longer than I don't want to say longer than other signs. It's giving me, how do I want to describe this? It's like whenever you feel, or you know what, sometimes what I think that this could be, even though you've recovered what you want, the heart is not glad. Sometimes we can get like almost comfortable with a certain type of feeling, like you get like, it's almost like you don't know, when you've been in kind of like a rut for a while, you're not even quite sure what it would feel like to be out of that, to get out of this sort of fixation. So you just stay in a similar kind of comfort zone there. It almost even gives you like a kind of like a Four of Cups vibes, which is the moon in Cancer. But that's just one thing that's coming up there for me too. So that might be something to just kind of take up attention there, if that's something that resonates with you. But the last energy here, line 6, talks about a bird's nest is burning. The traveler first laughs, then weeps. He lost his oxen. He lost his oxen at the kingdom of Yi. Disaster. And this to me would be like, almost like you're seeing this happening outside of you. So maybe another person is going through a similar situation, and it brings, it almost like brings up maybe some old emotions, or maybe maybe some unprocessed things that haven't been worked through. And now it's in you, it's like maybe like a certain epiphany is coming through, where it's just like, oh my gosh, I've been carrying this thing for so long, and I hadn't realized this. I remember talking with my parents once, and they were talking about some past things, and we were talking about regrets, and I was, in the way that they were talking about regret, that it seemed like it's just like they had to carry that thing. And it's just like, well, what makes you think that you have to carry that along? Because I don't think a regret has to be something that has to be heavy, or something that you is meant to be this shackle or this weight. This is meant to be where it's like, okay, yeah, I did this thing, I invested in this, and maybe again things maybe burnt down and it didn't go exactly as I planned, but it doesn't have to continue to say like that all, that I can't, maybe love again, or that I can't do this thing again. But it's just like, you know what, instead I just need to do it differently. I think regrets are meant to bring about, it's you've gained awareness now, your consciousness has expanded here. So it feels really kind of complex what this energy is kind of giving, and something I think is really trying to maybe bubble up here possibly. So again, but take that as that resonates there. So but let's go ahead, and get into the tarot here and get a little bit more on this story. But before we jump into that, a couple of things here. These readings that I do, they're not gender specific readings, so applying these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. And then I'm going to be talking about different topics, that maybe cover money matters, health, legal matters, maybe romance. So, well, not maybe romance. So, but this is by no means like professional advice. Talk to your doctors, your lawyers, for your financial advisors, your therapists, things along those lines. I'm definitely always very pro that. So, just some things to consider there. But what I'm going to do is pull 6 cards, and considering that you got your changing lines were 3, 4, and 6. I'm going to get clarifiers for cards 3, 4, and 6. But let's go ahead and get into your first card here, which talks about any sort of like short-term money matters, or how we're spending our resources or our time. So let's see what's going on with that. Ooh, interesting. So you got the 7 of Cups here. And you know what really was kind of coming up with this? It's this energy of maybe you're wanting to... You got a feeling that you're wanting to maybe invest in something. Again, this could be your actual resources, or this could be your time. You're getting, maybe you want to change your career, but you're not sure which one is really kind of speaking to you. But the 7 of Cups really presents this energy of just like options, of choices there. And it really is giving me this thing of which one is resonating with you. What is really kind of calling to you. Maybe you think that you have to go for, because I was actually just talking with someone about this, where it seems like that a lot in life, a lot of the emphasis is either in like the 2nd house, which is like money, the 10th house, which is career, and the 7th house, which is relationships. But we have 9 other houses that we need to look at. And I think that there's something here about exploring your options. Like I think that there's more available to you than maybe just like the snake, the dragon, and maybe this ominous hood thing that's going on there, this covered figure that's going on. But yeah, so that's just something I think to consider, just something to consider there. I think that even too, maybe if you're feeling limited on things, maybe looking for a second opinion, someone who can provide you maybe different perspectives there. Because maybe because it's almost giving me like, there's a lot of like something about an impressionable energy that's going on there. Like something is maybe influencing your decision, or something that's just like getting in the way of the waters in the sense. And that's very interesting imagery that I'm getting. It's like something is like pulling the strings unconsciously here. I'm not. Yeah, that's something maybe just to kind of sit with it. That's something that's resonating. Maybe you've been feeling under a lot of pressure to do stuff. Maybe you want to become an artist, but your family wants you to become go join the military or something like that. But I'm just throwing out just wild examples. But yeah, but ultimately, yeah, I think there are more choices available, and that might even be something too. I'm even just got a little message here about maybe if you're looking for like different like kind of like financial support, there are maybe other means of getting these resources. I mean, that's another thing, like whether this is through like property or maybe investing in sort of like stocks and things along those lines. Or so that's just another thing to just kind of consider there with the Seven of Cups. But let's go ahead and get into your second card here, which talks about any sort of like medical matters and things like that. Ooh, I'm with it. Love that. You got the sun. And hopefully you are feeling that, feeling revitalized and feeling like just full of, yeah, just feeling this renewed kind of fresh energy here. That's even this like I'm even getting this sort of like youthful energy. And it doesn't matter what age you are, where you're at on your journey. This could be a time to just like kind of tap into that inner child, and that might be where these options with the Seven of Cups is coming in here. It's just like, you know what, thinking about the things maybe that you didn't invest in before, the times that maybe you thought like, oh, this is childish, or like, no, this doesn't make sense, or this isn't practical. But this to me is giving like, something is filling you with life again, something is filling you with vitality. But this can also be maybe even just like kind of shining some light on a situation. Maybe getting like some sort of like test results possibly, or again maybe and considering just kind of going back to your hexagram, I would say this sun again is shining a light, and I think that there is a need for something to be illuminated. Like maybe you've been ignoring something for a while, and now it's time to now we kind of need to look at it, because even though this is the really positive card we're talking about with the sun here has a really kind of somber face. And this doesn't necessarily have to be like a news that's meant to defeat you, but at least it's like if you know what you're working with, then we know what the process is going to look like. Then it kind of narrows down what we may feel like. I was just actually just telling someone, they were like kind of looking up some certain symptoms. I was like, don't go down that rabbit hole, self-diagnosing. That can be, lead to some trickiness. So that's just something I think too to kind of be aware of with the sun. But ultimately, I think this is too just inviting more things that just kind of lighten you up, that just kind of fuel the body. In a sense, there we're in quite a bit of fire depending on when you're watching this. So yeah, just something to think about with that. But let's go ahead and get into your third card, which talks about any sort of like legal matters or social affairs. So you got the Eight of Pentacles here. And I'm just thinking about it in the social affairs aspect. This might be something where you might be in a bit more of a busier time right now. Man, it might be something too. Maybe you found like a new sort of hobby here, something that you want, or maybe a new kind of passion. Something sort of like a new project that you're wanting to begin. And right now we're just kind of in the busyness of it. The Eight of Pentacles is very kind of busy. Kind of work here, getting some recognitions. This could be where you're doing some work. And this could be where maybe you're doing, when it comes to like the legal matters, maybe you're thinking about getting like an LLC, or maybe you're thinking about getting like some sort of patent. Maybe you're getting things prepared to do some sort of like proposal, possibly there. Maybe some sort of like presentation, is another thing that's kind of coming up here with this Eight of Pentacles here. And especially since you got the sun, I think that this, that might be even something too, where maybe you've been kind of just working, trying to get something, like you wanted to get it like perfect. But it's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. At least start showcasing some of the work that you've been doing, bringing that stuff to light so people can see the progress that maybe you've been kind of making here. But let's get a clarifier on this and see what's going on with this Eight of Pentacles. So you got the Ten of Wands here. And the Ten of Wands, this is giving me like, again, you've been working really hard at something. This is something, and I think that, if you continue to, don't, or I won't say don't, but it's like, try not to overwork yourself that where you get to a place where you're not enjoying a thing. It reminds me of, there was a period of time, especially when I was first starting to create these videos, I was just like cranking. I was doing like releasing, doing like an all signs on one channel, and then I was releasing videos like 5 days a week on this channel. And it was just like work, 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 work. And at one point, it did get to a place where I was just like feeling a little stressed out, like trying to meet deadlines, trying to do all these things. And it's like, you know what? This is not how I want to experience this thing. This is not, I'm not getting any sort of like, I mean, I love what, and of course, obviously I still love what I'm doing. I'm still doing it. But it's like, how do I make this thing more enjoyable? How do I, instead of doing quantity, how do I put out more sort of like quality content in a sense? And that helped me to kind of revise and kind of adjust how I was doing things and getting it to where things are at today. So that's just something that's just kind of coming through there too. Try not to let something where it weigh you down too much. You've been putting in this work, and now it's like, I think it's time to showcase this thing. But I would say too, like, just again, when we're talking about constituencies coming up in legal matters, to make sure that you, if this is like an original idea, making sure to get a patent, get something that, or like, there's just like, have the documentation like that. This is mine. This is things, so that there's no sort of like copyrights and things that maybe come into the mix here. So just something to consider there. But let's go ahead and get into your next card, which talks about any sort of like marriage or romantic matters. Let's see what's going on with love. Oh, so you have the Judgment card in reverse here. And this, I'm partway getting this energy of, because the Judgment can be this like this epiphany that's coming through there. But maybe we're thinking, going back to this Eight of Pentacles, for example, that if we continue just to work at something and, just kind of push through, power through, that things are going to be, fine. And I'm not saying that we're breaking up with people, that's, keep that in mind. But it just more so just kind of seems like, it's like, it's one thing for a relationship. Like, of course, like with all relationship, there's going to have its ups and downs. But if it's something where you just keep like, you're working and you're working and you're working, and it just like, it keeps just like, it's not getting any better, just keeps getting heavier and heavier and heavier. It's like we're missing the message here. And when I was talking about those, and that's interesting that I had chosen that romance example when we're talking about the hexagram. Maybe it's just like we're, and not that I'm saying that this is what you're doing, but let's just say that, it's like, maybe if we're in some sort of like, let's say, manipulative sort of situation, because the Seven of Cups can get into some tricky areas there. If we're in some sort of like situations, and if you've been doing the work, but the other person is doing the work, but you're sitting there wondering like, well, what more can I do for this? Like, what can I do so that they stop doing this thing? And it's like, you can't do the work for them. At some point, this may be where it's like, we may not be separated, but maybe we need to take a step back, possibly here, and just kind of reevaluate how you've been maybe going about a situation here. But let me get a clarifier on this Judgment card and get a little bit more with this. So you got the Ace of Swords in reverse. And this is like, it's like a certain idea, like a concept maybe around a relationship, or maybe you think like it's almost getting like this, maybe if you think that, oh, all relationships are this way, like you always, like it's just like constant hard work all the time doing these things, and that's the sign of a happy relationship there. That's like it's just like really looking at the, yeah, looking at the roots of that, of that thoughts, because the aces are the roots of the elements, where this, in this instance, where the ideas, the areas of the mind, the intellect are first forming. And again, it's like maybe you thought a certain relationship was going to be one thing, and this could be like maybe someone came back, maybe you're like, you got, maybe you had a separation, and then someone said, hey, I'm going to come back, like you do, like I'm going to change, I'm going to do all these things. And then, maybe it happened for like a little while, but then it just like the themes started to come back up again, that it might be where it's just like, so again, just apply that to your situation as that makes sense. But I'm even just like, I'm getting this something about an idea about like maybe how we're dealing with romance too, where it's like, like it seems like every time that, or the message that I'm getting is like, like every time I get into a relationship, it seems like I'm just doing all the work and no one's putting back. And you know what? This may be the time where it's like, maybe you need to take a little space and just focus on yourself. Do things that are, what are some things that you've liked? Maybe you've been always focusing on what the other person, what would maybe make the other person happy. And she's like, what would make you happy? What would lighten your sunlight up here? And then putting your energies there. Because I find that the Ten of Wands doesn't just have to be something that's just like heavy and burdensome. This could be like, yeah, you've been putting this work in yourself, and working on your, in self-improvement. It's not like always easy, but it's very rewarding, and it makes you stronger, and it also is more discerning. And it helps, I think, too, when you have this level of, when you're coming with like different standards, you're really kind of asserting your respecting your boundaries, respecting yourself, with the, and treating yourself with the love and care that you deserve. Then other people respond in kind with that as well, and you start attracting more people of attracting more people like that. It opens more doors for you there. So that's just something I think to consider as well here. Yeah, because it's like, even just going with the hexagram, it's like, you may have to build yourself back up again after a situation, and your heart may not be glad that you had to go through this thing again, but it's just like, okay, to finally put an end to this cycle, what do I need to do? What are the signs there? Maybe just needs to take a little extra time to get that message. So. But let's go ahead and get into your fifth card, which talks about any sort of like immediately pressing affairs. So let's see what's going on with that. So you got the Three of Swords here. And this may be something where we're dealing with, like, we're getting over a situation. We're dealing with maybe like maybe a relationship ended, or maybe a certain, like, maybe had like a contract in, maybe with like, or maybe some sort of like employment ended, maybe like maybe something happened with like a lease, or something where like a contract is broken, and we're feeling a lot of emotions. 'Cause even though this is in one of the, a swords card, we're still in the intellect. That heart is still highlighted here. The heart, you were talking about that. The heart is not glad, and look, your heart's in reverse. and that's, and that's, we can laugh about it later. But right now, I think that this is something where you need to take some time and really kind of process a situation and why something is happening. Not necessarily to you, but how it's maybe happening for you. What new doors, you may just be focusing on all the things that have maybe closed out, but it's like looking at all of the doors that this is opening up for you as well. It's not just all like the universe, like, spirit just kind of like back you into a corner or anything along those lines there. So that's something that's coming through there. But it's giving me not necessarily, I'm even getting for some, it's like it's not an energy that maybe it's happening to you. It's just like maybe you need to be the one that's severing this contract that's possibly here, like putting an end to a certain external situation here that's just like no longer resonating. And again, allow yourself that time to process this thing, and think about, because I find where even if we had like a breakup or things like, or whatever this might look like, you can still find some gold from it. You can still get some, if not anything else, you come out wiser from the situation, which may not feel as fulfilling maybe in the moment, but I think it's like one of those things, once you get some distance between it, then you see like why this thing would happen, because now you're able to, you're bringing in a fresher you into a new relationship. You know what I mean? And it's almost, I'm getting like this image of just like two people who have gone through this work coming together, and recognizing like this kindred spirits that are happening here. And it's just like yeah, that's an interesting, like I just heard like, yeah, I see you, and I'm here for you, like I understand, and it's something very powerful in that. That's very interesting. But let's go ahead and get into your last card here, which talks about the karma or the destiny of a situation. Oh, and I love that. You got the strength card here, and I love that you got the sun card, and the strength card is Leo energy here. So, and the sun's at home in Leo, and I love that we're in this energy where the moon's at home in Cancer. And that I think the results of this situation is that you come out stronger from it. That you've recognized these sort of like these, you've tamed those sort of like those maybe inner demons that have been battling. You've noticed, you're recognizing the patterns that are coming through. You know what? Like, no, I'm not going to get in this relationship again, or no, I'm not going to be in a certain job that treats me a certain way, or no, I'm not going to work with people who do X. I'm going to set these different sort of standards here. And it doesn't have to be something where you have to be like really aggressive about it. She's not forcing this line anyway, but she is in control of this situation here. Like this figure is coming with a softer, kind of softer touch here, but yeah, let's get a clarifier on this strength card and see what's going on with that. So you have the Five of Pentacles in reverse here. And this, to me, it's like it's going to be something where whatever this situation is that you're getting through, it may be something where you're going to have to be, it's going to be maybe some solo work, obviously, that's going to be going on there. You may have to call on your own resources for a little while here, but to me, it's like I'm getting this energy of this, like you're feeling your reserves back up. You're feeling your bank back up. Metaphorical bank, but it's like we're getting into a place where, you know what, we're not worried about repeating the same thing anymore, because now it's like again that realization with the Judgment card. It's like, you know what, I saw what was going on here, so now I'm going to, yeah, going forward, I'm just not going to I'm not going to worry about doing this, repeating this thing, because now I'm better from it, and I have more tools to deal with this, but again, whatever this is for you. So yeah, that's just something I think to kind of ponder there. I think that's a nice little ending to this little story here. But let's go ahead and get some advice from Big Papa. Nice. That's good, girl. Got the moon here. Well, not the moon. This is the priest, the high priestess, who's represented by the moon. And let's go ahead and switch back over. Because, with the high priestess, I'm getting a 1 in energy again, but you got a lot of warning signs with this energy here. We're just thinking about your general energy, and I really think that the high priestess is just like, hey, something you've been here before. You've this has been a thing, and this is time to, like, when the last time you had this feeling. And it's not to say that this is happening all the time, but it's just like now you can get ahead of something, where it's just like if you're noticing certain behaviors, it's just like, talking about that up front. It's just like, hey, I've been maybe noticing, like I'm getting, maybe if you've been noticing some shadiness, possibly, like whatever that might be. Let's go back to the relationship. Maybe someone's been, schedule's been doing weird things. Something along those lines, whatever that might be. It's not a paranoid type of energy. That's not what I'm trying to get with the high priestess. But it's just like if you're noticing certain trends in things, it's just like hey, is there something that's going on? Something that we need to talk about. Maybe something that you're wrestling with. Whatever that might be there. Again, if this is a relationship, but I do think too that the advice here is there's an energy here of looking deeper in oneself when we're working with the high priestess. This is always a time for when she comes up to just to tune in, to get quiet and to hear to kind of feel what's kind of going through there. And there's a secretive energy to the high priestess. And it's not necessarily, I feel like, you keeping secrets, but maybe you just being in more of an observing place right now. Instead of, like, you know what I mean? It's like, instead of being reactive to something, it's just like, okay, now I'm just going to I'm going to pay attention. It might be nothing. It might just be just like a little thing, but I'm just going to keep eyes on this. If I notice that, I'll give you an example, just something that kind of popped up. I remember that I was someone was doing a relationship that I was in, and someone was doing this thing where I would, how do I describe this without just like airing all my dirty laundry? It's really more so their dirty laundry, but it was like, I noticed some behaviors that were kind of happening. Just something didn't quite feel right, and I didn't think anything. I just kept. I was like, if I notice this thing happening again, I'm gonna talk about it. And I did something very intentional. It wasn't like setting up someone, but I'm just like, I just did something, and then I just left it alone, and we'll see what happens. And then nothing happened, and so I was just like, okay, not a thing to worry about. But then something else later happened, and then, but it came up in a better way. Like we were able to, like, they were noticing that they were doing certain things too, and it was just like, it was. I know I'm being really I'm being secretive right now, but it was. Yeah, the priestess is giving me a really kind of complex energy right now. It's like there's this, and it might be where it's like you might be trying to figure out what is intuition and maybe what is being paranoid. That might be something that's kind of coming up with this priestess here. Because the judgment card could be misinterpreting the signals, but the priestess is learning those signals there, where maybe we used to kind of look and maybe hunt for things. So that's like what I like to tell people. If you look for something, you'll find it. Bet. But it's just like why are you looking for that in the first place? Why? What is happening in the situation that you feel like you need to look? Because there's more getting to, when you get back to the source of a situation, there's a reason that this is happening. So that's just something where without we'd have to go out. We'd have to go out and I'd tell you all about it to give you a full example. But yeah, that's just kind of the energy that I'm getting from that. Or you know what? Okay, here's a better example. I remember someone was kept saying that, like, oh hey, you're going to, they had gotten in a relationship with someone who just gotten out of a real kind of long-term relationship, and but it wasn't like it was a bad split between those two, and they they stayed in they stayed in contact, but not like constantly, but they kept in touch from time to time. But the person would always make jokes about, like, oh, you're still in love with such and such, or you do still doing this and that, why don't you call your boyfriend, why don't you call you call your girlfriend. And they kept joking about it and joking about it, and then those two got into a fight, and then the other person, and then they end up getting back with the other person. So it's just like, that's kind of what this is, that energy is giving. So that's a very complex thing that the high priest is giving out there. So apply it to your, oh, I don't know about that thumbs up, but it's like apply it to your situation there. But I think I'm gonna pull out of that a little something to kind of just meditate on there. But if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this for real this time. And share this if you know somebody who could get some nuggets of wisdom from this. And then subscribe there, you son. Hit the bell button to get notified when I release videos each week or each day. And then let me get your surprise cards here. But if you want to, work with me, down in the description box I have a list of, which I need to actually update that on my other channel. But on this one, I have a link down there with all the services that I provide, the prices for them. If you have any other questions, there's a link for my email down there to get in touch with me, and we can get everything scheduled from there. So if you want to work with just get to know your natal placement better, or if you want to know what any sort of like upcoming transits are going on, maybe you just want to stick to the tarot, maybe you want to get an I-Ching reading, whatever that looks like, that's definitely all available for you. And also I have on my other channel, Alchemist 8, if you want to go over there, there's a link for that down in the description box. And I do these weekly videos that talk about the transits and how to work with the energies. But I also do these videos too, talking about different planets in different signs in different houses, and just my thoughts on those placements and what are some themes that you might notice coming up with those energies. But yeah, just some things to think about there. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise card here, which you got the upward path card here. And I like this card because to me this energy is we're rising above. It's like we're not settling for a certain situation. Maybe you've been following on the similar path and it just kept you just kind of plateaued. So it's like, you know what? I'm tired of that. I'm gonna go up. We're moving up, and it's like you can either come with me or not. But I find it's like, sometimes I think at first when you're doing that when you're working on yourself, you're doing this growth, you're doing that work, sometimes relationships and situations, jobs, things just tend to, even environments tend to fall by the wayside, and you outgrow those things. But more options do open up for you, with that, remember, with that seven of cups, and they could be things that really, light you up again. You look at that, you're going towards the sun, towards the moon. I like that you got the sun and the cards that are represented by the sun and the moon here. I think that's always really neat when the sun and the high priestess come out. But this to me is a rising above sort of energy here, where we're elevating from a situation there, and not repeating a cycle. So learning from the mistakes and growing from this. Again, with the thinking about going back to Cancer, the crab eventually has to leave its home. You know, it can't stay in that shell forever. And that's a vulnerable time when it's got to, when it's getting out there and it's just like, oh, F, I got to go find something real quick before predators and things. But, like, where the growing process can sometimes feel uncomfortable, maybe we have those growing pains, but then you get settled into a new home and it's just like, yes, whew, finally I can just like kind of relax for a little bit. Nothing to worry about right now. I can just kind of be with my strength and yeah, just kind of feel more in tune with oneself too. So yeah, very, very fascinating energies that came through here. So hopefully you got a little nuggets of wisdom from that. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon. And I will catch you on the next one. When we're gonna catch you. Oh, Saturn Day.